Chapter 6, The Mind of a Teenager. Zhang Xuning was sitting outside, thinking about the affairs of Yan Lin, Zhou Yunzi, and others in the previous life, but she didn't care much about the voice inside. I only heard the curtain ring, and when I looked up, Zhang Boyu had already come out. She immediately stood up, bowed in a proper manner, and said, "I've seen my father," and then said, "It's really a shame for a daughter to disturb her father for these little things." Zhang Boyu didn't want to be more comfortable at this time, and waved his hand and said, "There are no people in your yard, and the master is not like the master, so you should have accepted it a long time ago." Ahem. Before he finished speaking, Chang Zhou immediately coughed twice beside him. Zhang Boyu glanced at him, saw him shake his head slightly at him, and came to his senses for a while. Xuening, this girl has been back home for 4 years, what she looks like, they are adults. The maid in the house has unclean hands and feet, doesn't she know? Apparently perceptive. But no matter how excessive these subordinates are behind their backs, in front of her, they are called by the second girl, and the stars surround her in the middle and hold her in the palm of her hand, as if she is a unique existence in this world. And she indulged in these people. In the final analysis, this child was picked up from the grange and brought back to the house. Wan Niang is gone, she is not close to the Meng family, and there is no one she knows in Beijing when she first comes. She looks pampered on the outside, but she is fragile and sensitive on the inside. The weaker the inside, the more you need something from the outside to support you. After all, Zhang Boyu is a person who can achieve 3 grades in the court, not to mention that he is still in charge of such a vital practical position as the household department. Many things he can understand, and this daughter is of course no exception. So in the past days, even if he saw her conniving at the slaves and maids in that room, he advised the Meng family not to treat it first, for fear that a bad cooking would hurt Xuening's heart and make her feel that the house was aimed at her. Today, I don't know what angered her, so she wanted to move and find him. But the more this happened, the less he could show enthusiasm for it. If she cooks it herself, it's fine, but if someone else rushes to intervene and scold the people in her house, maybe she has to think about it more, and others will help her scold, and the anger will not be done. Zhang Boyu thought about it, it was better to retreat as advance, so he suddenly changed his words and said, "But you are also quite protective of them on weekdays, and I think you serve them well. It is also common for people in the house to have unclean hands and feet, but you have to come to your father to help you administer justice, and you have to take care of the people in the house. In fact, it's just to deal with it in the house. Why do you want to make such a big fuss and make a big fuss? It's really a big turn of smooth nature." Zhang Xuning listened, quietly looked at Zhang Boyu for a moment, and saw the clue, so she only turned around. "Father is also reasonable, it's the daughter who doesn't think it through, so let's go back to the house and the daughter will cook by herself." Oh no! How could she react differently than she thought? Shouldn't someone be more angry and want to punish these people even more when they hear someone speaking for these maids? Zhang Boyu was caught off guard by her words, and when he saw her turn around and leave, he didn't have time to think about it, and as soon as he stretched out his hand, he hurriedly grabbed the person, showing a soothing smile. "Tell me about you, you're here, how can Dad let you go back to take care of it by yourself? You must know that I am in charge of the household department in the imperial court, and I can't see these unclean hands and feet. The family is not in order, how can you govern the country? Dad can't let you be wronged. Wouldn't it be nice to say that earlier? I want to play to retreat as advance." She's a daddy. The corners of Zhang Xuaning's lips hooked imperceptibly, but it was rare to feel funny, but she suddenly felt a little inhumane melancholy. When she was a girl, she was in the house, even if the maid was not good, she couldn't cause any big trouble, and if she had any trouble, she could basically deal with it. But after marrying Shenju, although Shenju does not treat her lightly, he will not take care of everything for her like Yan Lin. At that time, it was in a dangerous place like the palace, and no matter how good she was forced by the environment to move forward step by step. Slowly, I sharpened my calm mind and wrist to deal with people. But at that time, compared with her when she was young, she seemed to be like two people. Zhang Boyu looked at her, and also felt that there seemed to be some subtle changes between her eyebrows, and asked curiously, "In the past, you were very generous to them, and your mother and I were still quite worried. Why did you suddenly change your mind today?" Zhang Xuning thought about it, and she had indeed changed a lot. It's better to have a reasonable explanation. Raising her eyes and thinking about it, she said without changing her face and without a beat, "Yan Lin taught." "Oh. That stinky boy who always climbs over the walls of their house." Zhang Boyu snorted in his heart when he heard this, revealing a thoughtful expression. After a while, the group of maids and wives in Zhang Xunning's house were all brought. All of them are as shabby as chaff, and their faces are as colored as earth. Zhang Boyu thought that there were still guests in the inner room, and he was afraid that he would be too noisy, so he ordered someone to move 2 chairs and put them under the eaves outside the study, and only asked the maids and women to kneel in the courtyard. There was such a big commotion, and many people in the house knew about it, and quietly poked their heads out under the wall and by the corridor to see. Led by Wang Xing's family, everyone who was waiting in Zhang Xunning's house couldn't believe what they had experienced in less than half an hour. First, the second girl who had been coaxed by them suddenly called them into the house, and then asked them to hand over all the things they had taken before without warning, but they only denied it for a round, and thought that the second girl would reason with them even if they were to be punished, but without saying a word, they turned around and sued the master, and pulled them all out and knelt here. Wang Xing's family is even more miserable. She was frightened when Zhang Xuning just came back to ask for the bracelet, only to feel that the second girl, who had indeed obeyed her before, suddenly played her cards out of common sense, and couldn't understand what she was thinking and why she had suddenly changed. Zhang Xuning now has Zhang Boyu's support, so she only raised her hand and nodded at Lianer, "Go, get 2 big boxes." Lianer went to get it and rested on the ground according to Zhang Xunning's instructions. Zhang Xuning took the tea offered by Chang Zhou next to her, blew it gently, took a sip, put it down and said, "I already said it when I was in the house just now, if there are people who take my things, it's best to find them early and put them back. I cannot blame the past." Everyone was watching, and the old man was watching, and his head was completely silent. Wang Xing's family didn't dare to come out to speak. There was a little girl in the back who pushed her. She hated it in her heart, and she couldn't bear it, just thinking about waiting for the current difficulties to go back and clean up this little girl's skin. Zhang Xuning smiled when she saw that they still refused to speak. But she didn't talk much. People are kneeling and she is sitting, there is hot tea to drink, there are pastries to eat, what is the hurry? The middle of the courtyard is paved with hard bluestone slabs, and although these maids in the house are not pampered, most of them have fine skin and tender meat, and they have not suffered much. It's okay to kneel for a while, but after a long time, some people can't stand it. The man knelt on the ground, his knees began to move, his body began to shake, and his forehead and back were soaked with sweat. Finally, there was still a maid who couldn't help it, anxious and angry, and kowtowed to the ground and pretended to be aggrieved. The second girl really wronged the slave and maid, who didn't do his best to coax you to be happy when serving you in the past, and they all know what kind of temper you are, who dares to be a demon in front of you. Isn't it that they don't want to die? It's just that the slaves and maids think that the slaves and maids are good to the masters, and the masters will also cherish the slaves and maids. Who wants the second girl to want to come out and be one, and even this kind of hat for stealing the master's things will be buttoned on the heads of the slaves and maids. If you take an account book and confront the slaves and maids one by one, the slaves and maids may still be convinced. But no one in the house knows that you don't count your own things, and it's up to the slaves and maids to clean them up. Today, it is said that less is less in the box, and more is more, all depending on your mouth. The slaves and maids are all from humble backgrounds. Where will the money come from to fill this gap for you? What a mouth that turns black and white upside down. At first glance, it was the one who had contradicted her in the house earlier. If it weren't for the fact that her hands were still precious and delicate, Jiang Xuning would have pumped her up with her mouth at this time. It was expected that she would not be able to produce evidence. Especially the fact that she didn't count her own things. They all knew that if she bit this article to death, she could still beat Jiang Xuning back. You must know, she is pampered. If there is another public mouth, won't it be clear? Do you want proof? Jiang Xuning's too thin eyebrows lowered, a smile was already on her lips, and her voice was idle. In the past, I thought that you still knew who was the master in the house, but I didn't expect you to dare to contradict me now. Really, I don't know what to do. Everyone was stunned. Even Lianer and Tanger, who were the only ones who were not implicated and stood aside to serve, didn't react. Jiang Xuning glanced at the two girls, her eyes moved from Lianer's body to Tanger's, and with a slight flash, she ordered, Tanger, take the account book. Lianer was very confused at this time. The girl has an account book, why doesn't she know? Even the more stable Tanger was a little dazed. But Jiang Xuning didn't let her be at a loss for too long. My bookshelf counts down from the top to the third floor, and the sixth book from the left is, you go and get it. As soon as these words came out, Zhang Boyu next to her immediately looked at her with a strange gaze. Jiang Xuning drank tea and waited. When the maids and women who knelt down heard the word account book, their hearts trembled fiercely, and some of them had poor endurance, and they almost fell to the ground, and they only felt tormented in their hearts for a while, and they couldn't believe it. How could the second girl have an account book? A person who throws away his most valuable things in his hands actually keeps accounts in private? It's just puzzling. They really hoped that they had heard it wrong, and knelt in a panic, while looking in the direction of the Weeping Flower Gate, only hoping that Tanger would come back empty-handed for a while. It's a pity that the sky doesn't follow people's wishes. Tanger is back. She walked from the end of the Weeping Flower Gate, held a book with a thick blue cover in both hands, and presented it to Jiang Xuning. Second girls, the account book was taken according to your instructions. It was a little far away, and the others kneeling below couldn't see it at all. Tanger, who seems to be calm, is trembling with both hands. Zhang Boyu got closer, subconsciously looked at Tanger's hand, and was almost so surprised that he squirted out the tea he had just drunk. So where is the ledger? There are 4 big characters clearly written on the cover, Kindergarten Kyanglin. God knows that there is no broken account book on the bookshelf at all, and what Tanger saw in the 6th book on the 3rd floor according to Jiang Xuning's instructions was this book for the child's enlightenment. But I couldn't help it, so I took it head on. With such a big scene now, Tanger can't think about how her girl will end. But Jiang Xuning's face did not change. She calmly took the account book from her hand, and flipped it up. In March this year, when I was 18 years old, my mother added a red jade ruyi pei, and a pair of green heads. My father gave pine smoke ink and Chinsentang paper. Yan Shiza gave a pair of Ru Kill white porcelain flowers, a night pearl from the big food country, and a whole piece of mutton fat white jade carved into 9 rings, and a snow white bunny. It was caught by Yan Lin when he went out hunting, and said that he thought the little rabbit was very similar to her, with red eyes, pitiful and cute, and he was reluctant to kill it, so he simply caught it and gave it to her to raise. It's a pity that she didn't care about this rabbit, so she handed it over to her subordinates to take care of, and she was raised to death in less than 2 months. Jiang Xuning naturally couldn't have an account book. She didn't remember any of this at all when she was younger. But Yan Lin remembers. During the time when he was under house arrest, every time he came in the night, he would lie on her side on the couch, and his calloused fingers would touch her cheeks, and he would tell her about those thoughts when he was a teenager. It's hard for her to forget. Jiang Xuning's eyes were lowered and she read for a long time before she raised her eyes and looked at the group of people kneeling below. Where can you still kneel at this time? One of them was almost completely collapsed on the ground. Wang Xing's family is the fastest to see the opportunity. I only hear that she remembers everything in the account book very clearly, and some objects are extremely special. If the house has the heart to check, even if it is when it goes out, it can be recovered, and then it will be a sure crime, and it will be over if it is sent to the government. At the critical moment, she was open-minded. Wang Xing's family knocked his head to the ground with a bang, and cried sincerely, "The girl is wise, it's all the old woman and my lard that blinds my heart. I didn't dare to admit that I underestimated the girl's ability." The old slave's family was in difficulty, and when he saw that other people were taking the girl's things, the girl didn't care, so he thought about borrowing the girl's things to turn around first, and when my family got through the difficulties, he quietly returned them to the girl. Who would have thought that the girl's heart would be like a mirror, and she could see us pickled goods clearly. The old slave has served the girl for so many years, and when he watched the girl return to the house, he couldn't even sleep well at night because he had done something sorry for the girl and deceived the girl. Was found by the girl today, and I was relieved. Please also ask the girl to wait a while, the old slave will return your things in full. Please look at the situation of the past, let the old slave have the merits, and the punishment is up to you. As long as you can stay by your side to serve, the old slave will be satisfied. All the little girls kneeling behind her almost didn't pop their eyes out. I've seen shameless, I've never seen such shameless. In terms of the thickness of their skin, they are simply unsatisfactory to Wang Xing's family. Jiang Xuning listened to her words, not only found a reason for herself to take things, but also complimented her. The point is that she also admitted her mistakes and expressed her loyalty. If anyone doesn't pay attention to it, I'm afraid that they will still think that this is really an out-and-out loyal servant. She thought it was funny. Immediately, he said, "Then let's go down and get something." Wang Xing's family was amnesty, and he kowtowed to the ground 3 times before he got up, and after showing a flattering smile to Jiang Xuning, he retreated and went back to his house to pack his things. When other people see this, where do they dare to resist? I didn't admit it in the house before, thinking that the matter was not serious, but after being called to kneel down just now, I was already scared to death. Seeing that Wang Xing's family was cowardly, everyone naturally knelt on the ground and begged for mercy for a while, and they all went back to their own houses to take out all the things, and put them into the box that Jiang Xuning had ordered people to put on the ground one by one. After a while, the head of the pearl and the vase painting scroll were already piled up, and they were also sharp. I don't know, as soon as I treat these people, Jiang Xuning found out that she dared to love herself as a little rich woman. Even Zhang Boyu next to him couldn't help but be stunned when he saw it. Obediently, the Yanji Marquis Mansion is one of the 2 high gates of the dynasty. Before she got married, Yan Lin posted so much, didn't she give her all his own money?